Are you looking for more ways to incorporate your 12 by 12 patterned paper into your card making? Hi, I'm Jess from JessCrafts.com, and I'm here to help you make the most of your crafty supplies and time. So let's get making. Today I have 12 by 12 paper busting template for slimline cards, number 6. I will leave a link in the video description to where you can pick this up. There are 5 other 12 by 12 paper busting templates for slimline cards available at JessCrafts.com. These will show you how to make 4 slimline cards from one piece of 12 by 12 pattern paper without making any scraps. So we are going to start by cutting our patterned paper. I picked the Our Love Song Totally Rad paper from Bella Boulevard. This is marketed more as like a Valentine collection, but this paper doesn't have anything particularly Valentine about it, so I thought it would be a good use since we've passed Valentine's Day and I hadn't got a chance to use it. But one of the reasons I was drawn to the collection is because it's one of those ones that is great for a holiday and works without having to use it for the holiday. So I cut off the branding strip there. A minor thing that I noticed about this particular sheet, and I don't know if I've ever seen this before, but the bottom has a little bit of the opposite pattern, kind of, I don't know if it's really showing through, but there's like a little imperfection in the paper. And so I'm going to just be conscious of that as I cut my patterned paper, because as you'll see, the template calls, so each color represents a different card, although they're all the same card in the end, there's just one sketch. So I will start by cutting the 12 by 12 paper into 3-inch strips. So it'll be 3 by 12 inches. And I can do that by subtracting 3 from 12 or by bringing it to the 3-inch mark. But so I'm going from 12 to 9 to 6 to 3. And then I have those pieces that I need. I'm actually going to use the records as the strips of patterned paper in the background, and this side, which just has some like fun shapes, symbols, etc., as my like focal point image. And so since there's a little imperfection at the bottom here, that's where I'm going to cut my focal image, and that is how it is shown on the sketch as well. But I just kind of wanted to bring some awareness to that, because sometimes there'll be little things like that where, like, you know, I don't know, it's just various stuff happens and it's a way of addressing it. So I have this main focal point piece that I need. It is 3 by 3.5 inches. So once I cut it to 3 by 12, I cut 3.5 inches off the bottom. Then these are 8.5. They are the full length of a slimline card. As you can see here on the sketch, it shows you where the mats are and it tells you the measurements for mats. These 4 strips do not have mats. We are just going to put them right onto the card. So I'm taking my 3-inch piece, and when you are working with tools, please follow all manufacturers' safety instructions. I am going to cut 3/4 of an inch each time. So 3 strips that are 3/4 of an inch by 8.5 inches. And that's my last cut there. I will continue to do that to these other 3 pieces till I get everything that I need. I want to go slow and be clear so that you can get those measurements even if you don't download the sketch. So I can then reassemble these in order on the back of my card if I want them to kind of be able to be puzzled back into place. That's not quite right. Here we go. So I can just kind of pull them apart so they look like they could go back together, or you can mix it up depending on what look you like. This paper, the background of it, is mostly white. And when I have that, I do like to add mats. However, there's no room for mats on this particular card. So what I'm going to do is switch to a colored card background. As you can see, I could put it on a white background, and then that might just cause the records to really stand out. You might like that look. So just kind of want to give you a peek at what that would sort of look like here. But it also kind of, you know, the paper's sort of blending in to the background. Then if I take a colored card, I feel like that it tends to make the patterned paper pop off a bit more and adds a bit of fun, especially because this is such a bright, fun patterned paper with these records, I kind of want to lean into that look, although the other side is very black and white. I also wanted to mention this particular sketch does work with directional patterned paper, and you can use it with single-sided patterned paper. I'm taking advantage of the fact that I have double-sided patterned paper today to mix it up, but you don't need that to make the sketch work. You can also, if you have single-sided paper, always just use 2 pieces and then mix up the patterns. So there is a mat for this focal point piece. I'm not going to show cutting it today. I'll just say the measurement out loud for you, although it is also on the sketch. It is a 3 by 3.5 inch piece of pattern paper with a 3 1/4 by 3 3/4 inch mat. So the mat is 1/4 inch bigger on both sides. So we can adhere all of that down to assemble the basic card sketch and then go forward with some embellishing from there. I create my own slimline cards. The measurement that I use for slimline cards is 8.5 long by 3.5 wide, so that I can make them with my 8.5 by 11 cardstock with minimal extra waste, etc. And so I cut them to 7 by 8.5. What happened in this case is when I measured 8.5 for the length of these strips of patterned paper, I did find that it was a little extra there's gonna be like a little bit more on the card base that I measured, so I am gonna just trim that off. I try not to get too bothered by that kind of thing, but if it does happen, just to let you know that does happen some time to time. Even though you thought they measured them both to 8.5, you can do something as simple as trim it up. It is a little bit tricky to position these evenly apart. So what I typically do is I get, a little bit more, I have to be a little bit more fussy with the first one in terms of adjusting things. But on the second card, what I'll do is I'll put the strip of paper on each side first, because I do want those right up against the edges. And then I will lay these next to each other and use this as kind of a guide for where I should place my strip on my second card, because if I'm happy with the spacing on this one, using it as a guide will mean that I'm more likely to be happy the very first time and not have to peel anything up. I was able to peel it up because I'm using tape runner. That tends to allow you to, not always, you can certainly rip it, but you also might have noticed that I kind of kept my piece of pattern paper down, like you can do some kind of a light tack to it, or like just tape it down with something like scrapbook.com or like 3M Post-it tape, or scrapbook.com has their like mint tape, something like that, so that you can get a better feel for the positioning of something. But then using that first card as a guide for your multiple cards. Now we're ready to embellish. When I first picked up this collection, I picked up a couple sheets of pattern paper and the ephemera to go with it to make for some easy cards. It includes 146 die cut pieces. I think that these can be a pretty good deal if you don't like to color stamps, you don't have a big stamp collection, and you really take some time to look at what's on the back of them, because if they have a bunch of sentiments you're not going to use or images you don't like, then having 146 of them might not be very helpful, like if they were too lovey-dovey or something like that. But if like takes your time and kind of examine like how many of them will you actually use. I do learning to like flip over the package or on the online listing, being a little bit more careful to kind of zoom in and check everything out when you can, I found has helped me, because there's sometimes when I had purchased these packets in the past kind of assuming that, oh, they coordinate, so of course I'll use them. And then I found out some of the images just weren't for me or something like that. But as you can see, you get quite a few of them. There are a lot of hearts and there are some like love sentiments on these, but I was still able to pick out a lot that weren't particularly like Valentine or love themed. And then there's not many sentiments in this pack. However, I did have this You Rock sentiment. It's actually from a Christmas set from Fawn Pa-Rum-Pa-Pum-Pum, but go ahead, look in your stash, find something funny. I know you might not be copying this exactly, but I'm just kind of talking about like general things that I do and consider as I am going through and picking out products to purchase and to use. So here I actually have a long banner that I cut from the same yellow to kind of pull that yellow back in. I picked the blue and yellow, the blue background here and the yellow card, based on some of the records. I did sort of lean away from the pinks. There's quite a bit of pink in this collection, but I wanted this to just be like for a wider range of people. Not everyone likes pink. I feel like pink is kind of one of those colors that people like or don't like. So I just kind of leaned into a couple of other colors for the collection. And then I cut a long banner sentiment so I could stamp "You Rock" on both sides. It just saves me a little bit of time from cutting multiple since I had a small sentiment anyway. And then I like to put my die cuts out in like a tray like this so I can kind of sift through them. And I picked out a few ahead of time that I thought would work well. I was definitely, again, leaning into the music theme. There are some other kind of retro images like roller skates. I was thinking like, oh, this card is perfect for anyone of any age, whatever. But then I was thinking, I don't know, maybe younger kids wouldn't know that these are records in the background, but at the same time, then they're just colorful circles, and I guess that's fine. But I was like looking at some of these images and like the old-fashioned radios or TVs and that kind of thing, and I'm like, would they even know what that is? But vinyls are making a comeback, right? So, I'd also use my scraps to make what I call fake foam tape. I take 2 pieces of cardboard because I use thicker cardstock, and I glue them together. This is from a different card, but you can absolutely use the scraps from cutting the mats or your sentiments or that kind of thing. If you wanted, you could also, I showed that I used like a banner die. If you like the color that you chose for your mat for your sentiment as well, cutting the sentiment die or banner out of that mat, I have a lot of banner sentiment dies that would fit there, and then you'd cover up the hole with the patterned paper. This one wound up being a little long, and also I thought the blue would be a little bit harder to read once I stamped black on it, so I went with yellow. But just another little quick tip there for saving a little bit of cardstock, especially and for making your not only just saving the cardstock, but like making things kind of coordinate really well, rather than having to go pull for some other scraps or a new sheet or anything like that, since you probably want to incorporate the color multiple times over the course of the card. I also like the cardstock, the fake foam tape, the cardstock instead of foam tape, because I can really customize the size. I mean, obviously if you have a big piece of foam, you can do that as well, but when I chop off a bit like I just did there, and then I throw that out, I don't feel bad about that at all. I don't feel like, oh, I have to go use that somewhere, which sometimes with those foam tapes can get kind of expensive and you feel like you really, really need to get every bit of them used. But since this is something that could have potentially gone in the garbage anyway, if a little bit of it goes in the garbage, that's fine by me. And then I can glue my embellishment down and have my completed card. I was able to create 4 bright, happy, fun cards with 1 piece of 12 by 12 patterned paper. I really like how these turned out. I kind of start tending to focus on like general cards this time of year, as there's no in my mind, card giving holidays coming up, or very few. And so I just like to make everyday cards that can be easily donated. If you're interested in donating your cards, there's always a link in the video description, but I'll leave a little higher in the video description so you can find it easily, of places that you can donate any extra cards you have that you'd like to use to brighten the day of others. This template is available in part of a pack in the Etsy shop, but again, you can follow along with the video if you don't want to access that template. If you found this video helpful, here's another video where you can find more ideas for enjoying your crafty time and supplies. Let me know you like this video with a share to your crafty community. Subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss the next template or tutorial, and check the video description for product links. See you in the next video.